everyone, Matt Thomas here. Thanks for watching. I wanted to record this quick video on how to help our ELD students with their final exams. More specifically, our EL 1s and 2s, right? The students that are new to the language. Some of these suggestions could help all of our students, but I really wanted to focus on more of the ELD students here. So the first suggestion is to give your final in the student's native language. Now, before you go, wait, what, Matt, seriously? You want me to give my final in Spanish or Thai or Tagalog? Isn't that going to throw off like their English instruction, etc.? So my question would be, as a teacher, what is your goal? So is your goal English language instruction, or is your goal overall knowledge? Now, as an English teacher and an ELD teacher, my goal is English language instruction. I can't give my final in the student's native language. However, as a science teacher, right, your goal may be just overall knowledge. I just want my students to understand the concepts that I'm teaching. And so by allowing your students to see the final in their native language, that would be, I think, a better indicator of what they truly know. Because some of our, especially of our high-level EL students, they may know the answer of what you're asking in their native language. They understand the concepts, but they may be limited on their English, right, to be able to say the answer accurately. And so if you allow the students to see your final in their native language, they can see clearly what you're asking, and then what they can do to answer the question, they can go onto Google Docs, type out their answer in their native language, and use the Translate Document tab and translate it over to English. So they're still turning in your final in English. Now, the easiest way to give your final in the student's native language is to allow your students to use Google Translate, the Google Translate app on their phone, and hover their phone over your final, and that's going to translate the entire document in their native language. There's 60 different languages they can choose from. That's the easiest way. Now, of course, you yourself could always go to Google Translate, type up your final, and then translate it over to, the native languages of your students. But that takes a lot of effort on our part. The easiest way is to have just give your normal final, allow the students to hover over their phone while they're using the Google Translate app, and it translates the entire final. And again, allow them to type the answer in their native language and then translate that over English and then submit the final in English. So another alternate way to take the final is allow your students to give verbal responses. I know that takes a little effort on our part. I totally understand, because your students would have to come up one at a time. You'd ask the question, they would give the answer. But what that does do is writing is so difficult for EL students and for a lot of people. And it allows them to not have to worry about like that disconnect between what they want to say in their head and then what they want to write down. So maybe allow them to give the response verbally, understanding that oftentimes the articles in languages don't line up accurately. So your EL students probably won't use a lot of a, and thes. So just understand that. The answer, you may have to grade based on intent. Like, okay, I think you know what you're talking about. Yeah, you're saying enough to where I understand you know what you're talking about, etc. You could allow EL students to fill in graphs, charts, fill in the blanks using sentence starters, as opposed to, say, short answer responses. That would allow them to, especially sentence starters, right? Sometimes our students know what they want to say, but it's just getting started. Now, before you go, wait, Matt, my native English speakers are giving me short answer responses, and you're asking me or suggesting that my EL students just fill in a graph or a chart or fill in the blank or use sentence starters. Like, that's how is that going to accurately be an indicator of what they really know as far as grade wise? It doesn't seem equal, right? And you're right. And so you may want to adjust your grading, right? You may want to say okay, if you use the chart or the fill in the blank that I give you, the highest grade you can get is a B. If you give me the short answer response, then you can, earn an A. So there's something around that. And again, these are all suggestions. If they don't work for you, just don't use them. And then finally, translating apps, I would highly, highly suggest that you tell your EL 1 and 2 students, like, hey, use the Google Translate app. It would translate almost anything that your students would need there. Using the Google Voice typing, right? They can open voice typing on Google Doc and then speak their answer and then translate it over to English. I've got the videos there. I've sent these videos out many times. They're nothing new. You probably have seen them already anyway. Finally, I want to end this with a quick story. I promise this is purposeful. So my first year teaching, I had an EL student named Laura, and she was a nice person, typical, student C. She had a C in my class. And I asked her one day what she wanted to do for a living, and she said, "Oh, I want to be a doctor." And I'm like, "That's so cool." So I saw another teacher that she had as well. I was walking around and went, "Hey, you've got Laura, right?" And I said, "Oh, by the way, this teacher does not work here anymore." I said, "You've got Laura. I had Laura too. She's a great person. She wants to be a doctor. I'm so proud of her." And this teacher looked at me and she goes, "Matt," she goes, "you've got to stop being so optimistic about your students." I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she said, "Doctors are born successful," whatever that means. And she said, "Laura has a D in my class." She goes, "Doctors get A's from kindergarten all the way through college." She said, "Laura's not going to be a doctor." And the last I talked to Laura, she was entering med school. So I was so proud of her. And so I share that story because, Laura was a ninth grader. Sometimes what our students do in high school is not an accurate indicator of what they're going to become, right? So I figure our job is to help them along the way and give them all the tools to be successful. And then, ultimately, their outcome is their outcome, right? So it's not always an accurate indicator what they do in high school, how successful they're going to be in life. So I wanted to share that with you. Thanks, guys.